Boom. Howdy, fam. Anthony Dream Johnson here today. I'm going to be your host for the Redman Group, episode 174. Founder of 21 Studios, the 21 Convention, the 22 Convention, 21 University, the Patriarch Convention, 21 Summit, co-founder of the Redman Group, and 10,000 other things on the internet. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I know it's been a few weeks since I've done the show. Been very busy preparing for the upcoming 21 Summit in Orlando. Coming to Orlando, Florida, October 14th to 17th. That's a Friday through Monday. Magical Super Bowl, the Manosphere 4-day event. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be insane. 16-year anniversary of 21 Studios and our events. Now, before we get into today's show with our special guest, Coach Noah Revoy, who's been on the show several times before and has spoken at the 21 Convention back in Poland 2019, I want to show you guys today's sponsor, 21 University. Visit the link in the description right at the top, 21studios.com/mobile or 21university.com. You can get our free app on the Apple Store or Google Store, the Apple Play Store or Google App Store. It's free to join, free to download, 30-day free trial. It's pretty dope. Then if you want to stay a member long-term, it's $20 a month or even $16 a month if you do the annual. On top of that, I want to make sure you guys know about 21 Summit. I'll be there myself, of course, as the founder. And this speaker will be speaking at several of the events, including the Patriarch Convention for fathers and the 22 Convention for the females. 21 Summit's an umbrella event that contains 3 events. The 21 Convention for men, I'll be speaking at that one. Noah will be speaking at the Patriarchs event here on the left with Michael Foster on the cover here. And then the 22 Convention is actually for women only. You cannot be a dude and go to that. You got to be a birthing person to go to that. And likewise, women are not allowed to go to the 21 Convention or the Patriarch. Either this one's for fathers, the Patriarch, and the 21 Convention Classic is for all men over 18. Check out the events, link in the description, 21 Summit, meet myself, meet the upcoming speaker here in today's show. You can also bring a friend free for a limited time and save on early bird tickets, all kinds of good stuff, super dope. You can even use the 22 Convention for babysitting your wife, kind of like babysitting, like daycare and you go to the gym. You can go to 21 Convention or Patriarch, and then you dump your wife off at 22. No problem, bring friend free, a whole kind of deal. Coming out to the event, it's amazing. Best event in the world for men. It's awesome. You should get a ticket. You should be there. Take action. Get off your ass. Get off the internet. Stop scrolling on fucking TikTok or whatever the fuck. And come meet us face to face. Shake our hands. And don't be a beta male. Be an alpha male. Now, without further ado, and this 5-minute ad campaign to promote our events and apps and all kinds of fun stuff, please help me welcome to the show, Mr. Noah Revoy. How you doing, Noah?
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. And thanks for having me on so close to the convention, because I know this is a super busy time of the year for you. So you're working hard for this. I don't think people realize how much hard work goes into one of these events. It's not rent a place and then invite some people. It's a lot of hard work, and you really do good work, Anthony.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. And yeah, it is crunch time. We got about 41 days to go to the event. Let's see here. Yeah, 40 days and 22 hours, 41 days. So yeah, it is crunch time. It's a lot of work. It's kind of like I've been thinking about lately, and I think you'll understand this. You're an online entrepreneur mostly, but then you'd also do some public speaking engagements and stuff like that. My business is kind of this weird hybrid where most of the year it's like online business, but then for a certain window of the year, about 60 days, a little bit over that, before the event and then a little bit after, it's very physical, like brick and mortar. There's a lot of shit to do, a lot of logistics, a lot of people to hire, a lot of people to buy flights for. We're often buying 15 to 25, even more flights, hotel logistics, meeting people in person, renting gear. Like it's a huge, 6-figure operation that is not like launching an ebook. So throughout the year, I feel like I'm in online entrepreneur world, but then as the event closes in, it's very much like, let's get this shit going, like physically open the door.
Well, I don't think people realize how hard it is to get dozens of highly successful men who have their own lives and their own schedules and their own plans to all get together in one place at one time to do something. It is really tough. It's like, it's like organizing an invasion pretty much.
Yeah. And the speakers too, we're all high testosterone, pure-blooded alpha males, and, managing all these different personalities. There's some females too at the 22, but that's a pretty new phenomenon. Mostly it's just men, obviously. At our men's events, I only allow men to speak to men, for example. I don't allow women to give presentations to men. There can be a little exception here and there, like a Redman Group panel or something. But anyway, managing all your personalities, like I'm my own bombastic, abrasive personality. And even the most mature alpha men are also going to be, have their own very strong wills that I have to kind of manage and mediate and negotiate and just make everything work out. And yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult to be that. But working with you guys makes it easy. A lot of you are, all of you basically at this point that stick around that are not the predators like the Jesse Lees. Pretty awesome to work with. And you guys make my life a lot easier and you help promote the events and set things up. So I appreciate it.
Speaking about the predators, I think that's so important, the work you do to push those kind of people out and to make it clear what they really are, because most people aren't capable of seeing that, and very few get to see the behind the scenes that you get to see. And there's a huge difference between, and
Yeah.
you've noticed this when you invite people, their public persona, you invite them and then you realize they're not what they're saying in public because you get a
Yeah.
chance to spend time with them. But your average YouTube watcher, they don't get to see that.
Yeah.
And so they're hearing this message from, they're professional manipulators essentially. And if you don't know what to look for, and if you don't see them in person, you don't get to crack that exterior, but they can't keep it up, 24/7 when
Yeah.
they're in person.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I've actually thought about writing kind of a manosphere / conference organizer / YouTuber insider book someday, just about all the fucking crazy shit that I've seen over the years. And it's not just, when people see the memes or the hit videos, exposed videos, that's like the tip of the iceberg or kind of the end result. Leading up to that, there's a big smorgasbord, a big buffet of bullshit where you learn something, a clue here, or someone asks you to like keep, they tip you off about something and you're like, oh fuck, this is not good. Like another, effing predator. So I think
I
it's just
see you,
good.
I see you each time too, give these guys the chance to come forward, and
Yeah.
nobody's done it on their own. Like
Yeah.
you're not just hanging them out to dry. You're saying, hey, be honest, or I'm going to say what's happening.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell people what's really going on. Every
That's right.
time that I've seen, you've given them a chance to
Yep.
come forward. You've given them a reasonable amount of time, and nobody's even made the smallest effort to clear up the situation or even respond to it.
Yeah. They tend to be, this has been my experience with business and even outside of that in personal relationships. When you find someone, my, Medusa story from many years ago, the wife thing, that was a personal example, but in business, it's very similar. People who are committed to living a lie, who are committed to living this fake facade and manipulating lots of people, social circles, family, friends, business relationships, entire online communities of hundreds of thousands of men and some women too. I mean, it's sick, and you realize how embedded they are with it and committed, and their teeth and claws are so deeply woven into it. They'll do nothing to get out of it. You're right. Like every fucking case, it's like an '80s action movie or like some Judge Dredd shit. I'm gonna give you one chance to come clean. They never come clean. They're
Yeah.
they're married to it in a way. They're married to the lie, and they're married to the manipulation, and they're married to the illusion that they have to make money. So they're financially invested in it too, and then emotionally, psychologically, all these kind of, I mean, you could probably speak to it better than I could, but I'm just kind of more
Well, this
boots on
is
the
why
ground.
it's so effective. This is why their manipulation is so effective. And I talk
Yeah.
about this in my book, that all manipulation starts with your own internal manipulation.
Mm.
And the best liar convinces himself, at least while he's speaking the lie, that he's telling the truth. This
Yes.
way he can do it with this kind of authenticity that
Yes.
a person who knows they're lying is very easy to spot. I mean, your kid can tell you, you can tell a kid's lying when they lie because they're transparent.
Yeah.
When a professional liar, a professional manipulator lies, they first convince themselves. It's almost impossible, even if that's your job. And I talk about becoming immune to manipulation, but I also talk about not having so much hubris to believe that you can spot every single manipulator a mile away. It takes some time sometimes
Yes.
to see through this. And most people don't have the time to go and examine it. And we have
Yeah.
all of these public figures washing through society, and some of them wash out, like Jordan Peterson. He self-destructed, Taylor self-destructed. But very
Sam
few.
Harris. Sam Harris, I think, is a recent one
Yeah,
too.
he's in the middle
Self-destructed.
of it right now.
Yeah.
And that's great because that it's obvious. But how many years did people follow these people?
Yeah.
And maybe some of what they said is true, but they mix in some manipulation in with it. And it's
Yeah.
so very rare to come across someone that actually has a chance to see them in face to face and
Yep.
go, hey, he's not who he said he was. I better warn people. And you get a lot of flack for warning people. But like, you're almost the only one doing that.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I
I
appreciate
mean,
it.
that's the only one. And that's important. And I know, like, I don't want to be there punching celebrities and telling them to smarten up. So what you're doing is really important for the manosphere itself. We have to push out our manipulators, because if we don't, it's a contagion. It affects everything. I talk about manipulation creating low trust societies. Well, we are a sub-community, a sub-society within the manosphere. And
would you say manipulation is like a cancer? Like it just grows and grows, like feminism?
Absolutely. And it causes us to deviate from reality. And eventually we deviate so far that whatever organization gets saturated with it crashes and burns. We see, American society's got so saturated with manipulation, it's crashing and burning. The churches, people think that it's because people aren't interested in God or religion. No, they're not interested in the church because they've seen how much manipulation is there. The church suicided itself. It didn't just die. It manipulated people when it didn't have to, and created this situation where people don't trust it. And that's why it's dying. That's why all our institutions are dying.
Yeah, let's pause on the church one, because I've been thinking. I watched a couple movie trailers this morning. They're kind of comedic, poking fun at and I think it was good. The mega church pastors who are always like, Joel Osteen and these mega frauds that are always like, closet in the closet, then they come out, these sexual allegations, which are like true 80% of the time or 90. Stealing money, whatever. It's just, I need my 4th private jet, because Jesus told me I needed 5 jets and I got to get 4, and then we're going to get 5. And I need a $10 million house because Jesus wants me to live in a $10 million house. Not you, but me. I mean, this shit is like, some of that stuff you have to deal. So there's like, you got the Catholic pedo priests sometimes. You got the predator pastors, Jesse Lee, number one, building a cult out of it. So you got the Protestants, you got the Catholic stuff. I don't know about the Orthodox priests. I haven't investigated that yet. Then you got the megachurch pastors. So you're right. They suicided across denominations. They like blew up their own thing. And it just got, I guess, because no one was willing to call it out. I know Church Militant called in the Catholic Church, they called it spineless, feckless and spineless our bishops and stuff, because they don't have the balls to call stuff out usually until it's like the last minute.
They can't because the way that the church is structured is that you can't, it's a kind of hierarchy where you can't call out anybody because it ends up affecting you. If they're downstream of you in the hierarchy and you call them out, why didn't you fix this problem before it got this bad? Yep. And if they're up above you, you can't call them out because they're your boss technically, and they can cause trouble for you, take you out of your position, and then you have no room to speak. Yeah. I know here in Portugal that I know someone who was hired by the Catholic Church to go after these people that are predators and stuff in the church, and they picked someone that is not a priest or part of the hierarchy because he's outside of it, and so he's not subjected to the same church law, and he's able to be more effective. But there is a desire by many in the churches to purge them of manipulation, but they don't know how. And it's so deeply embedded in things. Where do you start? And part of the reason I wrote this book is to give people the tools to remove the manipulation from their organizations, whatever it is. If it's government, if it's the church, if it's your family, is to get the manipulation out so that you can restore the health.
Let's pause on this real quick. I should have entered the book sooner. So Noah Revoy recently wrote and published Become Immune to Manipulation, How They Are Manipulating You and How to Resist It. It's a great book. I've skimmed it myself. I haven't read it yet, but I will be reading it. I'm excited to read it. Pretty thick, pretty meaty. It's a good design too. I like it. I care about the way books are designed. And when people pick shitty fonts and colors and the material, it annoys the crap out of me.
I hate too when they do the text all the way to the edges. I like white space. It's great for taking notes. It give you a chance to, I got to apply this. And really, that's the way the book is to be read. You read something through it, you see, oh man, I'm going to go apply this right now in my life. Don't finish the book till you go apply that. Then come back, work on that next thing, and work through it think of it as a book with things for you to do, exercises for you to do to remove manipulation from your life, rather than some sort of a self-help book or for entertainment. Most self-help books fail because they don't really they tell you what to do. They don't tell you how to do it. And so I focused on the how. How do you get manipulation out of your life? Yeah, we don't want it. How do you get it out? And it's harder than we think, because if we were to simply eliminate all the people in our life who manipulate us, there'd be nobody left. We'd be all alone. And that's that is a manipulation in itself. The more alone you are, the less people you're networked with, the easier you are to push around and manipulate. And the better your network, the harder it is to push you around. So we have to walk this tight line between not allowing people to manipulate us, but not also burning every single relationship that we have.
Yeah, I have to walk this line a lot, and I think about these issues a lot. I talk with them with close friends too, like Tony Bruno and others. But walking this line in the manosphere and with 21 Summit and the 21 Convention, and all these different relationships that I'm in the middle of, current, past, present, future, like in the works basically. And it's very difficult to walk this line and to call out, eventually frauds when there's a problem or an issue it becomes apparent that this person is a huge fraud and a fake and a hypocrite. While also not burning 1,000 bridges and looking like some. I mean, optics are important. I don't particularly care how people view me, but I'm also not. I might be immune to social pressure, but I'm not invincible to consequences. So I have to pick my battles wisely, basically. And this is why when people see me fight with someone, in some big battle like the Hypergamy Wars of 2019, I call them, with the fraud father himself, Rollery. People were like, oh, Anthony's a bridge burner. Anthony did this. And this is all the opposite of reality. This is a manipulation by him as a defensive position. Once he started attacking me and defaming me, he was actually the one who started it. And since then, yeah, whenever I call someone out, it's funny you mentioned that. People get really annoyed, like, oh, why didn't you see this sooner? Why didn't you call it out sooner? Oh my God, this and that. And the reality is these people are not sufficiently red-pilled enough yet to understand that at least 80% of the content creators they watch on YouTube and on Twitter and all this bullshit, these people are fake to different degrees. Not everyone is like a predator, pastor or something like that. You have different degrees of hypocrisy and predation and fraud, and people lying to themselves too. They eventually buy their own bullshit. I think Jesse Lee, man, he's been preying on dudes, young men, for like 30 years. So that lie is so deep in his psychology. I think with Rollery too, like Rollo has built himself up into this godfather, fraud father, and he actually buys his crap, and he's just like some never was loser guitar guy who hasn't had a same night lay in 30 years, and his wife treats him like shit. And it's just embarrassing. This guy gives people dating advice. It's embarrassing to watch. And then you have these young guys who are like so sucked into these little miniature cults of personality. Cuck Murphy was another one. Holy crap, that was an epic explosion. That was awesome to watch, and I was very happy to take a big part in that behind the scenes.
On the other hand, I've seen you have some pretty like serious arguments with honest men, and then I've seen you guys make up a day or two later, and everyone is friends again. And it doesn't end the friendship. And now that's the key is the honest men come back and go, yeah, I'm sorry. I made a mistake there. I was wrong. I said something that was incorrect. And you guys restore the relationship. And I actually think that after that kind of a blow up, men have a stronger relationship than they had before they had a fight. Arguments and fights make men's relationships with each other stronger because they test the reasonableness of both parties. And they test whether or not they're really going to be honest. Is this guy really one of my guys, or is he a fake? Yeah. And you don't know that until you have a fight. This is part of the reason why some of the things that came up that you've exposed, you didn't realize it until you have a fight and the guy shows who he really is.
Yeah, exactly. Until there's a test and a confrontation with reality and with their spoken word, what they profess to believe. I was thinking about this too, because I've been thinking about more exposed videos I need to do. I always have a list of like 10 to 15 I need to make. And eventually I get around to like one or two, and then slowly over time. But I was thinking about doing some examples, because in the past I've done examples in my exposed videos about politicians. And I focused on like a Democrat, Andrew Gillum, one time. He ran for governor in Florida. He, alleged to be this, strong family man and a good father and a good mayor. And then he was actually banging gay hookers in Miami and doing crystal meth and other drugs and vomiting all over the place, all over the news. I mean, it was a legendary, F up for a politician after he lost, of course. And he presented himself to 20 million Floridians as a good man and a good father. And I love Florida and blah, blah, blah. But then I was thinking about Republicans too, like John McCain, who died a couple of years ago. He professed for many years as the most aggressive anti-Obamacare Republican. And then when it came to a vote, he was the only one who fucked the whole thing up to repeal it. So it's like you have it on both sides of the alleged political spectrum. You have it in culture wars with the Manosphere, for example, and other content creators. There's all kinds of frauds on YouTube. YouTube has its, there's like the Manosphere, which is across different platforms, Reddit, Twitter, YouTube, but then YouTube has its own content creator network and who are mostly frauds. They just pretend to be, maybe you can comment on this. I see a lot of YouTubers and it really annoys the crap out of me. They pretend to be like the friend of their viewers. Like, hey fans, hey, you beautiful bastards, we're buddies today. It's like, man, you
Yeah,
don't,
it's very fake.
yeah, it's super fake, but people fall for it because they're all like oblivious to manipulation. They need your effing book.
And they talk
Become
to them
immune
like
to
they're
manipulation.
children. They
Yes.
talk to them like they're children, which is the worst part of it all. And even my 9-year-old son, he'll come across some of those videos and he's like, there's something wrong with this guy. And I take him and I'll watch through some of these things and I'll say, what's wrong with this guy? What bothers you about him? Okay, because we're told most children can recognize there's something wrong. And the problem is we're trained out of it. We're trained to ignore our instincts and to ignore that. I mean, most kids know that's a bad man. You get a little 3-year-old kid, somebody wants to come up and give the kid a hug and the kid cries about it. Don't let that person hug your kid. Kid might be having a bad day, but maybe the kid's got a better sense than you do of stranger danger.
Yes.
Maybe that kid's right.
Yeah.
Well, kids have that instinct and we train it out of them. No, I'm sorry. You're not allowed to have your own personal space. No, you're not allowed to have your own opinions.
Yeah.
You got to follow the dominant narrative. I say this all the time about especially young feminists, that most of them aren't actually feminists. They're just submissive women following the dominant narrative. And right now, the dominant narrative they hear is feminism.
Yes.
You're told this is what a good girl believes. Okay. That's what
I think it rises.
I get like 18, 20-year-old girls that I coach sometimes, and I ask them, what do you want to do with your life? Well, my mom says I should go to college. Well, my teacher says I'd be a good engineer. I'm like, but what do you want? Well, I was told that. It's all I was told. Well, what do you want? Imagine if nobody told you anything and you just decided what you want. 9 out of 10 times they say, I just want to get married and have babies.
Yep.
And they say it so sheepishly. And I'm like, you feel that need inside of you. Yeah. Why don't you tell anyone? Tell people that's how you feel inside. Your needs matter too. And that's what manipulation's about, is saying your needs don't matter. You need to do what I want you to do.
Yeah.
And
I want to
go ahead.
I just want to say, I want to add that, you mentioned that feminism is a dominant narrative for young women. I think it's actually more than that. It's risen to the level of a kind of baseline religion for them because it dominates their belief system so totally and so absolutely. And they have that, like you're saying, it's shoved down their throat from everybody: school teachers, their mom, their dad, their church pastor or whatever, their friends, their aunt, their grandma, maybe not their grandma, but pretty much everybody but their grandma and their grandpa. And even then, who knows, right? 50-50 on that, maybe. I mean, it's a disaster. And my girlfriend was like this too, man. She never went to college, thankfully, which would be terrible. I think women should only go to college like 40 plus, if ever. But she wanted, like to build a family, and these things are important to her, kind of family formation and all that. And everyone told her the opposite. That's stupid, blah, blah, blah. You need to go to college. You need to get educated. Thankfully, she never did. But otherwise, she wouldn't, be here with me. But yeah, it's a disaster.
Don't tell women what to do, because we're telling them what to do. So you can't. Yeah. Don't do it, man. And this is why I tell guys, like, you need a feminist who's under 25 usually. And if if she hasn't ruined herself, like, she's not ballooned up to 400 pounds and destroyed her health, don't take too much stock in the fact she says she's a feminist. I'm like, just become the dominant narrative in her life. And if she follows along with that, wife her. If she follows along with you, that's great. And if she doesn't want to follow your narrative, then fine. That's not who you're going to marry. And it's because otherwise, the only other women you find who don't follow that narrative are the aggressive, somewhat antisocial, high testosterone ladies that, and some of these are great women in some ways, but they're tough. They're difficult to deal with, but they have the backbone to say no to feminism. On the other hand, they also have the backbone to say no to all the betas, and there just isn't enough alphas to go around for these women.
Yeah. Yeah, most men by far are betas. That's why we got to make men alpha again. They got to be fucking alpha. I've been thinking, go ahead.
I think the real difference in that, whether you're alpha or beta, is to a large extent is, did you grow up? Are you done growing up?
Mm.
And most men haven't grown up. Sometimes we talk about we live in an effeminate society. That's not really true. There's nothing wrong with femaleness. It's that we live in an immature society. We live in a childish society. And so men are childish and they stay children. And that's what a beta is. The beta is there to be told what to do, like a kid. What do I do? And he's looking to be told what to do. And when you grow up, you don't need to be told what to do. You become high agency, self-sufficient, and capable of managing your own life. What is that? That's an alpha.
Yeah. Yeah, you lead your own life. You're the author of your own life. You make your own decisions. You're constantly leading. You're constantly pushing in a certain direction, even if you end up changing later. You're aggressive and assertive. Yeah, people get so butthurt about the alpha thing. They go, oh, the scientist who made it up about the wolves, the waiter doesn't even like it as the theory anymore. There's no alpha wolves. Blah blah. I'm like, I don't give a shit. It's a useful binary system to push guys in a masculine, healthy, mature direction, and to make fun of beta males and shame them for being beta males, for being ignorant and not knowing better. I mean, to some degree, right? It's not infinite. I'm going to make fun of them enough to roast them and to kind of challenge them, to get them to feel, something negative so that they do something, feel some pain, feel some emotional pain, you stupid beta, and become an alpha male. What do you think about guys who say that? Go ahead.
So a woman told me yesterday, she says women see 3 types of men. There's alphas, that's who they want to reproduce with. There are betas, that's who they want to get stuff from. And there are omegas, and that's who they want to crush and punish because they want to make sure they're out of the gene pool completely. Like there's no way they're going to reproduce. Yeah. And the revulsion women have to those men on the bottom, and a lot of those men on the bottom, they could do a lot to come up. Very few of us are living up to our potential.
Yeah.
Most of us we've been manipulated into believing that the things we need to do to live up to our potential are somehow toxic. And so we're not doing that. And once you can identify that, like reading this book's a bit dangerous because once you figure out where you're being manipulated, you're going to see it everywhere. And the changes you're going to make are going to cause friction between you and the manipulators in your life. Yes. It's going to change you for the better, but yeah, you're going to have to nut up after reading the book.
That actually describes my own journey in the manosphere just as an event organizer, as a leader in a capacity that's always been central to like many different content creators and authors and speakers. And over the many years, I've become more mature, a lot more alpha and a lot less beta. And this friction that people see over the past couple of years, 3-4 years, I've become much more aggressive and much more conflict prone. Like, oh, there's a fight to be had with some fraud who's trying to manipulate me, lie to their own fans, other cross fans as well. I just don't have any fucking tolerance for it anymore. So now when there's a fight to be had and I think it's appropriate to fight and proper and healthy for the movement, then I fucking execute. And this like scares people, especially all the beta males, which is most of the manosphere. And it's most of the population. And first of all, but it's still that number, 80%, whatever, it's still pretty prevalent in the manosphere. And it sucks, but it has to get done. But anyway, it's been a personal journey for me to move in that direction where I'm willing and able to fight. And whereas when I was younger, I didn't have the power yet to fight. And I didn't understand how I was being manipulated personally, how these different speakers and coaches and whatever, how fake they really were. People I looked up to, whether or not they ever spoke. For example, I used to look up to like Neil Strauss, author of The Game. And it doesn't mean I don't like The Game, the book. It was inspiring and entertaining. But Neil is a huge beta. He's always been kind of a little weasel. And Owen Cook is another one, Tyler from RSD. I used to look up to that guy. I used to love reading his blog. The guy's a huge liar, a huge fraud, and a huge beta. And when I was 17, 18, 19 years old, that was a guy who was kind of like a hero to me that I hoped would speak in my convention one day. I would never let him speak in my convention now. He's a loser. I can run circles around. I have more masculinity in my left fucking pinky than that guy does in his whole body. He's a liar, a fraud, and a fake, and it's disgusting. And there's a lot of men like that when I was younger, even in the manosphere, a young manospherian. Now I'm a lot older manospherian, and now these people piss me off. And now I have a lot more power and a lot more reach to fight with them and cause them problems that they deserve because they're lying, manipulative, fake pieces of shit, weasels and betas. And yeah, I think beta males too they find this very peculiar. I'm saying that right. It's like they don't know how to comprehend it. It's like, who's manipulating me? How am I being manipulated? What the fuck's going on? Why are they fighting? Can't we all just get along and sing Kumbaya? It's like this fake unity to move the manosphere forward that actually holds it back. And then,
And one of the
Good.
things too, like the alphas don't need to lie.
Yeah.
They don't need to show, they don't need to pretend to be someone they're not, because they're completely happy with the person they are. But if you're a beta and you see these alphas and you want what they have, see, it's that if you're an alpha and you just are a beta, sorry, and you're just like, this is where I am. I got to work hard. I had a client the other day. He's like, I guess I'm not an alpha like I thought I was. And I'm like, you could be, but you're going to have to put some work in over the next few years to get your life in order. And he's like, okay, I accept where I am and I accept what I can be. I said, good. Now you're going to make progress.
Yeah.
The problem is they don't accept it. And their shortcut to get there is to lie.
Yep.
And the alphas don't need to do that. That's, you want to find out the best guys to get along with is usually the most dangerous men. The most dangerous men are the men that are easiest to get along with, because they don't need to show off. They don't need to pretend to be something they're not. They just show who they are, and that's impressive enough. I told my son this. He's been exercising a lot. He goes back to school, and I said, don't go to school and show them how strong you are. Just let people observe. You don't need to show off. Just let it be seen by how you live. And most of these guys, most of these betas, they didn't have a father. And if they did, he wasn't a man. And because of that, they weren't taught how to behave properly. They weren't taught that you have to earn being, getting to the top. And then there are some men who just never will.
Yeah.
And, you got to be comfortable with that. You're going to keep struggling. That's just what's going to happen. And that dishonesty, that's at the root cause of all of these problems.
Yes. Now that brings me to an important question I have. So one theory I've had as I continue this war on the frauds and to make the manosphere great again, is I think it's more inadvertent. Like, I don't think it's because you're saying, and I agree that, when there's manipulation going on, it begins with the self. It begins inside you. You're lying to yourself in some capacity to cover up some pain or some trauma, or, to avoid some difficult inner work to become alpha, to become more mature, to become more masculine. So one theory I've had, though, is that one of the reasons that frauds become popular in the first place is because they lie so much.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, in a like attracts like kind of capacity, there's always a debate, right? Does it, the like attract like, or do the opposites attract, whatever? I think there's probably elements of both of that at play throughout the world in our population, in our species. But anyway, with frauds, when these dudes lie so much, it actually attracts beta males who are lying to themselves. Oh, I don't need to be alpha. There's no such thing as alpha. It's okay to be beta. Oh, whatever. Women are just hoes. Blah blah. Like all this dumb shit. Anyway, so when I look at stuff like this, Simpson the Hood, these guys are three, key frauds in my view: Shardy, Fakey, and Fraudy. But now one of them is not very popular at all. I don't give a shit about the Shardy lately. I destroy that guy. But these other two are still pretty popular for now, before they blow up and implode. I'm looking forward to it. But anyway, it's like dudes who lie to themselves. The fans they have are mostly just beta losers by far and large. They have some haters that follow them, but mostly it's just weak beta males who grew up without a father. They're raised by a single mom. They lie to themselves. They make excuses. And I think these dudes attract them because they're just reflecting that at a higher frequency or a higher volume almost. So does that theory make sense, and does that hold any weight to you?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of these betas, they have these Walter Mitty fantasies. I don't know if you know what I mean. It's a story where the guy, he was in the army, but he's like a desk clerk or something. He gets out and he tells people these stories of his great heroism, and his entire life ends up being revolving around his imagination of who he could have been, if only. And these frauds, they feed that Walter Mitty fantasy.
Yes.
And the thing is fantasies separate you from reality, and they separate you from other people. And so the more that you can separate your prey from the herd, the more control you have over them. And, people are like, well, are they making a lot of money or this or that off of these? It's not about that. It's about the power they have to control other people, the attention they get from other people. There are men that are just like women, get a high off of attention.
Yeah.
They get a high off of people paying attention to them and looking up to them and saying, you're great.
That's exactly what happens with these guys. Yeah. People donate a $5 super chat, right? Oh, shout out to the super chat, blah blah blah. And on one hand, it's like, okay, thanks for supporting my show. On the other hand, it's that attention that they're giving them, and that's what these guys are addicted to. Just like women, they're all these beta males. They're very female, like they're very effeminate in that way. That they love the attention especially from this kind of father figure that they have. It's really sick and perverse.
Well, alpha, if he wants approval. He wants it from a peer. He wants another alpha to, do the chin up nod that he recognizes him. And he doesn't need that, but it's great to have that approval from another alpha. But these guys, they need it because their existence is based on a lie, and it's based on the fact that other people believe the lie. Because if nobody believes the lie anymore, and we see this with other movements as well, where if you don't believe their lies and their delusions, they say that you're doing violence against them. You're erasing them.
Yeah.
Why? Because if you don't agree with their delusion, then all we've got left is reality, and the reality is not kind to these people. The reality is historically, beta men did not reproduce.
Yeah.
And
they get weeded. They get sent off to war to die. They fight the wars of rich old men. They get weeded out of the gene pool. They get cucked, literally. They get cheated on. They get, all kinds of just nasty shit. What is it? 80% of men throughout history didn't reproduce, something like that, historically.
Yes.
I mean, that's a perfect split, alpha beta. People say alpha beta doesn't exist. It's like, look at the fucking history books, or look at the evolutionary record, or the ancestral record, whatever you'd call it.
Now the good news is we're all descended from alphas. That's the good news.
Yeah, good point.
Okay, so that potential to mature and grow up into a man is there for almost everyone. I think some people just get the short end of the, genetic lottery, and that's not possible for them. But for most men, it is. And I don't think we've never had less fathering, but we've also never had more access to the information that men do need through other sources.
Yeah.
And, there is no institution anymore that's going to raise you up. No one's coming to save you. As Andrew Tate says, no one's coming to save you. No one's coming to save us. We're going to have to save ourselves. And while we're at it, grab a few friends and pull them along with you.
Yeah.
And that is, it's never been in such an equal playing field. People are upset about their lot in life. They've never had a greater chance in history to improve that lot in life.
Yes.
But it's the fact that they complain about it instead of doing something about it that keeps them in their beta position.
Yep. Beta males for life, but they don't have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you do reject the idea then that, I like to say that basically anybody, like you're saying, can be alpha, can become a genuine alpha, can transform into that, can really deeply, achieve real personal deep change, not the illusion of it, not pretend, not just a little bit, like actually make fundamental changes. But then I think what you're saying is they just make excuses. They don't want to do the work. I tell guys in my newsletter all the time, it's like, look, you can come to my convention. I think it's the best event in the world for men by a long shot. It's extremely powerful for you, but it's not really going to change you. You're going to change yourself. The event's going to help you do the work. Noah Revoy, AJ Cortez, Socrates, Coach Greg, it doesn't matter. They're not going to change you. They can't. Like, you can't change them. When you're a coach, I paid you for coaching. You're one of like the 2 men in the history of the universe who I've ever paid for coaching, just because I'm like a cheap fuck. But also, I'm really, really picky. I don't like paying people for money for coaching if I don't really trust them. You and Pat Stebman, the only guys ever paid for coaching. But anyway, yeah, I know that you can't change me. I'm under no delusion of that. And that's what makes, when I see these frauds in the manosphere, promising guys all this BS and all this like secret red pill knowledge where it makes them feel powerful, this illusion of power. They still don't know jack shit about women. It makes them feel like they're changing, but they're really not. And they're still like oblivious to the fact that they have to change themselves. I'm sure in your coaching, this is what you believe, right?
Yeah, they're all about avoid risk. So avoid women basically because it's a risk instead of become the man that can handle risk. And I'm all about. Yeah, this sounds so lefty retarded, but I'm about giving men power or showing them the path to power. Empowering. I hate to use that word, but that's really what it is. The left has co-opted all the cool words, unfortunately. But that is what is necessary, developing your own agency so that you have the power to do it on your own. And I come at it from a fatherly frame. I don't want my son to need me to tell him what to do any more than absolutely necessary. I want him to know what to do. I want him to be impelled by his own inner person to do the right thing so that I don't have to do it. My goal is not to raise a boy, it's to raise a man. And my goal when I'm coaching men is to turn him into, is to give him the path to become a better man so that he doesn't need me. As soon as possible, I want to get him to that point where, he's a near peer, like he's coming up in my direction. And I tell guys, there's going to come a point where, and this happens with almost every client, they go, I was gonna message you and ask you a question, but I thought, what would Noah say? Which means that I've implanted, the thinking process is necessary for having agency in their brain. And they go, I didn't need to ask you the question because I already knew the answer because you've taught me the process of solving the problem. And that's really what it is like men are problem solving machines. There's no food. What do? I go and I hunt. I'll kill something and eat it. You know, the neighboring tribe is attacking our tribe. What do? I organize the guys and we build spears and we go out and we spear them to death. You know, we solve problems, whatever the problems are. And the man who can solve more problems, that's the man who is more powerful. That's what gives you power, is your ability to solve problems. There's when God appeared before Moses in the burning bush, he says, I am who I am. In other words, I become whatever I need to become to solve the problem. That's the epitome of masculinity, is becoming whatever you need to be to solve the problem. And that requires a lot of agency, but it's painful to learn that.
Yes.
Because you have to go around other men, because you're not going to learn this in a vacuum. You have to be around other men. This is why 21 Convention is so important for a lot of guys. That's their first chance to be around other mature men.
Yeah.
They've never maybe had that opportunity. And those men will judge you. And that's the painful part. The painful part is that men pointing out your flaws. But you know what? If none of the men that are around you are pointing out your flaws, it's either because they're too stupid to notice them, or they don't love you enough to tell you when you need to improve. And that's all you have to. As soon as you get over that shame and the shame comes from being manipulated all your life. The shame comes from mostly, and honestly starts with mothers a lot of times, the shame from your mother judging you for your failures gets generalized into the future. And if you don't have a father to correct that in the second half of your childhood, you keep it. And now your failures make you ashamed, instead of the other man's judgment being seen as, hey, he cares enough about me to tell me I'm a fat fuck and I need to exercise. Like,
so on the judgmental part, I love that, because you're one of the few men I've heard say that. And I've tweeted it many times. I believe it philosophically from a objectivist point of view. Judging is a good thing. You know, I think you should judge everyone and everything all the time, every day, 24/7 if you're not sleeping. And this annoys people, because they're always, the left and the whole feminist crap and all the woke crap's always like, don't judge, don't be judgy. Why are you judging me? Oh my God. I hate this garbage. Your mind, like you're saying,
it's a sign of insecurity. It's a sign of enormous insecurity.
It's a sign of weakness. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just like extremely fucking lame, to put it nicely. But yeah, it's good to judge. I mean, everything in objectivism anyway, everything your mind does, problem solving, thinking things through, creating new ideas, whatever, you are judging right from wrong. You're judging reality. You are judging facts from fiction. This is what I mean by judgment. Judge, think, apply, do something. Now, you also mentioned basically like, being judgmental to your friends, telling them what you really think when they need to hear it. And that's what I did with my friend John Thomas, who got big butthurt when I made fun of him for getting legally cucked with what he described to me from his, I talked to him privately as well. He described this chick as like most Western women when he met her, of course. And now she has his balls in a vice like this, and he has a little poodle. And he got really butthurt about this. He threatened to, basically threatened aggravated assault, all kinds of stuff. He got big butthurt on audio. I put it out. That pissed him off even more, which is pretty awesome. But anyway, someone asked about this guy, and it made me think of this, like what you're saying. This is someone who I told him privately. I was like, look, I'm the one guy right now who has the balls to tell you what my honest opinions about and observations of what I'm seeing. And I think it's ridiculous and very unhealthy and very blue pill in a classic manosphere sense. No buts about it. Like, this is totally stupid, A to Z. And no one else, I guess, around him. Everyone in public was like clapping and shit. I'm like, you're like a bunch of SEALs. You're a bunch of zombies. In private, obviously, nobody's pulled him aside and said, hey, is this a good idea? This actually looks like a terrible idea. But nobody had the balls to say that. And of course, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to tell them exactly what I fucking think. And then I'm going to tweet about it. Because you know what? The truth matters above all, and no one is above the truth.
When I was a teenager, we had a friend. My friend group was a bit older than me. And he was going to get married to this woman that none of us liked. And we knew it was going to be living nightmare for him. We kidnapped him. We took him to the woods for 4 days and made him go camping with us. And I mean, literally, we went into his house and grabbed him and dragged him out and threw him in the car and held him down until we got on the highway so he couldn't jump out of the car. And we took him camping for 4 days. And, we got him drunk and told him, like, you got to think about this while you're drunk, where your inhibitions are down, so that you're thinking, or sometimes inhibition lowering makes you think clearly.
Yeah.
because we've been trained with these stupid inhibitions to ignore our own instincts for
Yes.
survival,
Yes.
especially as men. And we've been trained by that almost exclusively by women, by our mothers, because we have to put up when you're 6 years old, you got to put up with whatever your mom dishes out. So
Yep.
you just learn to take it, and that, I can't imagine she doesn't love me, because if I do, that's the end of my life. And so you learn to put up with this, and it becomes part of who you are. And if your dad doesn't get that out of you as you get older, it never gets out of you usually. So we made sure that he understood, like, we didn't like her, and this is why. And by the end of it, they didn't end up getting married. He was kind of pissed off until about day 3. I don't know how long we were going to keep him there.
Yeah.
Until he changed his mind, basically.
That makes me think about, I've declined several wedding invitations over the past couple of years because I don't support the wedding. I don't support the relationship. And this in my own, private personal life, friends and family and stuff, this really pisses people off because because it's so, I guess I'm sure a long time ago, this was more common. If you didn't support the marriage, you didn't fucking go, or you went and you spoke up. This, of course,
how can you stand there and the guy says, does anyone have an objection? And you not object?
No one says shit. Exactly. Yeah. So, basically I would go do that otherwise, but it's going to cause an uproar and these people are going to get super pissed. I might do it at some point just to fucking go that route. You got options, but I tell them flat out, like, I don't support the marriage. I don't support the relationship. It's going to blow up in your face. It's going to last probably 3 to 7 years, and then it's going to blow up in your face. Someone's going to divorce. Someone's going to cheat, and it's stupid. It doesn't work. Doesn't work now. Didn't work before. It's not going to work in the future. Getting married is like pouring gasoline on a burning fire, a young fire at this point, right? So anyway, it pisses people off super bad. But I wish more people, I hope that I can inspire men listening. Like, if you see someone in your personal life, like Noah, you had a friend, you took him out to the woods, you guys got drunk for a couple of days, and you straightened him out. That needs to happen a lot more. That's what men should do for each other. And that's what I try to do. John Simons was, and maybe still is in a way, a friend, right? Loosely speaking. We were never like close or anything. But he was a speaker a couple times. And then he made this like really stupid blue pill mistake, and he's extremely beta. So I made him into a poodle, and then he got really butthurt. But maybe he'll wise up and get out of this, unhealthy, toxic relationship that's probably kind of abusive, at least emotionally. But hey, maybe I'm wrong.
He doesn't get out of it. Just the knowledge of what it is, the only way he can fix it is to admit what it is. You can't fix something that you're not admitting isn't working. And I like John too. And I wish him the best, but man, like every man that saw the photos cringed, including his friends. They just didn't say anything.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. It's not like nobody noticed it, but you and me and a few other guys. Everyone noticed it. He just didn't say anything because we're all of the left and 3/4 of the right are the no judgment people.
They're betas. They're all fucking betas.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's so rare you find a man that's willing to make judgments. And there are the odd woman that's like that too, that's willing to come out and say things. And we have to, I've noticed I have to be careful then not to jump all over those women and stop being a bitch type thing, because actually no, they're right. And they got to say something.
I would say Professor Janice Flamengo is a really good example of that, who always does it even-handed and right. Very intelligent woman. She's a great man in a way, Janice Flamengo. Alpha woman, alpha female. Yeah,
well, and good at mixing that with feminine behavior, which is that's the hard thing, is for a woman to mix that masculine agency with feminine behavior. And the women that do that, those are the women that men most are interested in. Like if there are women watching this and you want to know what men are interested in, we want high agency women that still act like women. Yeah. And that's a really rare mix, because this idea that women are children, it comes from experience with women, but it is a pain in the ass to manage a woman that's acting like a child. It's kind of funny at first. Then you try to have kids with someone like that, and you go off to work and you're like, I wonder what's going to happen when I'm gone. Like, you shouldn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, is the house going to burn down? Who the fuck knows? Yeah.
What is she going to feed them? Like real food or slop? Genetically modified soy garbage. And you're raising your kids. Mostly she does the work during the first 7, 8, 10 years of their life, and after that the father really does the majority, should be doing the majority of the parenting. After that, you got to have a lot of trust in her, and she's got to have her act together. And I don't have a problem with a young woman not having her act together yet, as long as she has the humility then to learn. Someone asked me the other day if I'd write a book there's a book, The Care and Feeding of Husbands. It's for how women can take care of their husband, like what they need to do to support him. And they said, what would you write for husbands, for women? And I said, it'd be the training and domestication of wives. And that's basically what it is. As men, so often we end up with the only women that are available aren't completely developed yet.
Isn't this what husbanding means? Husbandry is it comes from like domestication of animals, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you get to domesticate the wife. You got to tame her and control her.
Yeah. Well, and the objective is to get her to cooperate, not just to submit, but to cooperate. In other words, she can now operate on her own while you're gone and look after the cover all the things that you can't do because you're at work, you're out doing things. I knew since a very young age that the path I would walk in life would be dangerous, that I would say things that people didn't like to hear. I was doing that as a kid, that I would, I have been investigated by the FBI for things I've said that were, I've had Child Protective Services twice do investigations. I recently had an intelligence agency claim that I'm a terrorist and a Russian agent and all kinds of stuff like this, because the things I'm saying are pissing the right people off, and they're throwing whatever they can at me. And I'm being very careful that I haven't been canceled yet, but I was on Facebook, but I haven't been canceled from all social media.
Yeah.
But what happens is I knew when I got married, I had to pick a woman that if I was in jail or on the run, or if there was some kind of problem, she's going to hold the fort down while I'm gone.
Yeah.
If you want to, in this day and age, if you want to be a man and you want to do great things, you got to pick a woman that has her act together, or who will learn to get her act together after you marry her. And that's really like, you gotta look for that while you're picking the woman.
Well, you mean respond positively to your leadership is really what that means. Like, be responsive. Like,
and learn to imitate your agency. Like, she needs to learn to imitate your agency. She sees how you make decisions, and what she should be asking herself is, my husband's not here, but if he was, what would he tell me?
Yeah, good question.
And that's the ideal. And the closer she can get to being accurate in that, the better a wife she's going to be, and the more happy she's going to be as well.
What do you think about this meme? Well, it's actually an advertisement, but it's also, I love it. It's hilarious. It's my favorite meme of the year. Dominate your wife, dominate life. And I just put a picture of Elliot and his wife here for it.
Women with no men will get offended. Women with a man that is a dominant man find this incredibly attractive. There's this split. So I show this photo, and I occasionally joke that I kidnapped my wife and that's how I got her to marry me. And there's always a bunch of women that say, that's so hot. I love that. You dominate her, overpowered her, took her back to your tribe and married her. And it's completely a joke. But women mostly, if they're honest with themselves, that's what they want. Yeah. They don't want to marry a man they can dominate. Now, there is a few exceptions to that. There are extremely broken women that cannot let go and cannot go into their feminine and are so far onto the masculine side of the sexual dimorphism that they don't want. It's not that they want a man they can dominate. It's that they want a man child that they can mother.
Yeah, they want a son husband. Is what they they want to turn him into kind of a son. Yeah, it's very unhealthy and very shitty.
Yeah, I remember this feminist telling me that growing up, my dad was my best friend. He was like an older brother to me, and blah, 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 blah. Because I said, feminists often have weak fathers. And her answer was to reply like this. And I'm like, I wasn't sure if she was agreeing with me, because that was pretty much agreement, or disagreeing with me because she was proving my point.
Yeah.
Women want a man that they can't beat on any sphere. There should be no sphere in which your wife can beat you. That's ideal. Yes. Now, sometimes, because life is what it is, maybe your wife can earn more money than you. Maybe she's higher IQ than you. Okay, but you got to dominate her in all the other aspects. When you can't, she becomes anxious. She becomes fearful. If he can't dominate me, a woman, how's he going to protect me when the bad man comes?
Yep.
And because there's no bad man. It's the 21st century. It's like, have you been watching the news? Every other thing is like, civil war is coming. We're not going to have any food this winter, and electricity in Northern Europe.
And World War III is coming on top of that.
Yeah, and World War III, and the Russians are invading, and
maybe Ebola will break out next, like worldwide. I mean, it's been a wild couple of years, and it looks like it's going to keep heating up.
Yeah, but, and I've been kind of wishing, hope, and praying that we get some mass scale discomfort without a lot of people dying.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to get that this winter here in Europe. I made this joke on Twitter that it was starting yesterday. Germans are now having to take cold showers. They've been asked, some law passed that they're supposed to take cold showers to save energy.
Well, it's going to get a lot colder pretty soon, right? I mean, it's not freezing yet, but it's going to get balls cold in what, a month or two?
The last time the Germans were forced to take cold showers and not have enough food to eat in the 20s, we got the 30s.
Yeah.
Are we trying for a repeat here? But if you want men to wake up, give them cold showers. Think what this is going to do to women's psyche when it's like we can't even keep the water hot.
Yeah, because Russia cut the pipeline off, right? Permanently. Indefinitely was the word. Yeah.
And then they sent this picture to mock them of a transformer with a couple of drops of oil on it and said, "Oh, there's an oil leak. We had to shut it off for safety reasons."
Wow.
Because apparently they have contracts. This is all contractual. And their contract says it might have to be shut down for safety reasons. So they had to create a manufacturer reason.
Where does you live in Portugal? Where does Portugal get its energy from?
We get Portugal and Spain are on a separate grid from the rest of Europe. The Spanish have almost all renewable energy that they destroyed their entire economy to build. Although at least they got something this winter. And where I am, I usually never turn my heat on. I can walk around like this in the wintertime most of the time and I'm fine.
Wow.
I could probably, just wear shorts all year long and I'd be fine. Not because it's warm, just because I'm a warm guy.
Well, you're pure-blooded alpha male.
I just take the beard, tuck it in my shirt, and I'm warm.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, and my wife's like that too. Like my wife and I in a room, and the room's plenty warm just from the heat coming off us. So that's not a problem here, but the food shortages will be a problem everywhere. Because if people get hungry enough, they'll do anything to get food.
Yeah.
Hunger is the best predictor of people becoming more conservative.
Yeah.
Revolution. People realize that. Yeah. Suffering through periods of famine permanently changes people's outlook on everything from immigration to government spending to government in their lives. It changes everything. And we're about to get some hunger. It's going to bring us back in line with reality again, perhaps for the first time since the end of the Second World War. Everything's been good. Every year, everything's better. It's going to keep getting better no matter. Let's shit test the system and elect all women into power. The Americans will bail us out again if we're in trouble. Don't worry. And now, Europe is sitting here looking at America's trans army and going, they can't bail us out from anything. They're going to have a hard time patrolling their own coast at this rate. Yeah. And I mean, the U.S. government has clearly said, if you look, there are documents from the U.S. government that have been made public that say the U.S. government is incapable of withstanding a civil war.
Yeah.
They know it. How can they protect Europe? So Europe's now on our own, and we're going, oh, I guess it was a bad idea to, send every soldier home, get rid of all our guns, and put women in charge of the military.
Yeah. It reminds me too of Führer Biden talking about like F-15s and the Civil War and all this crap, and it's like you're clearly delusional. You clearly don't know a lot about this. You could know in your position, but you really don't. And yeah, America has an insane amount of guns. We have more guns than people in this country. Thankfully, I love it. Ammunition, in the billions. Who knows?
Well, and what I think a lot of politicians don't. They may realize this, and that may be why they're so desperate right now, is that very often a large number of the people protecting them wouldn't side with them if they started to use weapons against the American people.
Yeah, that's what I want to say. It's anxiety that we're hearing. That's why F-15s. Like, what are you talking about? Does the Air Force even use F-15s anymore? They use like F-18s and shit. Like, what are you talking about?
They sold the last F-15 to I think they gave it to Iraq in a military deal like years ago. Yeah, it's old technology, like 1980s.
Yeah,
it was original Top Gun planes, not now.
Yeah, I know. It's boomer talk.
They're on F-22s now.
It's boomer anxiety talk because he's anxious about a civil war. And I guess when you poke and prod people and try to label half the country domestic terrorists, that you're kind of fucking asking for it. It's insane, the stuff I've been seeing with that. Yeah, but We'll see what
Well, if
happens.
you
I
look
think.
back to Lincoln, he was constantly talking about saving the republic. Okay, not that what he did was the ideal way to save it, but he kept talking about saving the republic. And if you look back at previous presidents, they keep referring to the republic. Biden never refers to the republic. It's all our democracy, our democracy, our democracy.
Yeah.
The U.S. is not a democracy; it is
Yeah.
a republic. So, what is he referring to that he's worried is not going to be saved? It's not the
Yeah.
U.S. government. He's not worried about that. He's worried about their scam, their manipulation being
I think he's
uncovered.
worried about
More and
he's
more
worried about
people.
I think he's worried about the deep state is like
Yeah,
really specifically what he's referring to. Democracy means deep state.
yeah.
All these agencies, deep state, all this fucking crap, garbage. It all needs to be thrown out and purged, abolished, evil. I
Well,
hate
the
it.
Supreme Court has actually started to restore some of this. I don't think that any gun laws will survive 2023. They're going hard after it. And what a lot of people don't realize is that they didn't go after gun laws. They said that laws that were how did that go? That did not follow the Anglo-Saxon legal norms. So we're going back to pre-United States. Were not constitutional because that was what the Constitution was based on.
Yeah.
And so you have to prove now that a law follows those norms. Well, you know what else doesn't follow those norms? Government backed education. So the school system is technically unconstitutional. Income tax is technically, even though there's been a constitutional amendment, that amendment was done. It didn't follow the rules that were necessary to put an amendment in, because you can't change the amendment, can't go against the previous existing law.
Yeah.
It can add, and amendments are not there to take away rights. They're only there to add rights. So we're possibly going to see massive changes. And this is creating, like, we talk about civil war as being something with, guns and shooting. There is other kinds of civil war. There are I say that manipulation is social and emotional warfare. And we're in a civil war that is fought through manipulation.
Yeah.
And people call that a Cold War or whatnot, but it's a Cold War fought through manipulation. And this is why most people who are unarmed are unable to defend themselves in this manipulation. A lot of people have been criticizing, for example, Andrew Tate over the things that he's been saying, or more or less they just don't like him. That's what they're criticizing him on.
Yeah.
And what I say to them is then provide a better alternative.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not out there influencing young men, you don't get a say in the future. You can't say, I don't like the influence that guy has. Go take his influence then.
Yeah.
Take it from him.
But they can't, because they're too fucking weak.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, because nobody's going to listen to them. And because they haven't actually been out there in the trenches with young men to know what young men are even interested in.
Yeah.
And and a lot of guys, their solution is, well, go to church. It's like, which church? Which church is going to help young guys make more money, get a woman, and get independence from this system?
Yeah.
Most of the churches are so embedded into the system, they're going to go the other way around.
Yep.
I know young people that told me, we go to a church, we sit down, a woman pastor comes out, we shake our heads, we get up, we leave. We go to another church, gay pride flag, we leave. And they're telling me this, like, with pain in their voice. We're trying to find a church. We go through 15, 20 of them. Not a single one of them has anything to do with the Bible or God. And how much more are we supposed to look? And these are serious young people that are really making an effort. And so we have to offer young men alternatives. And I think there should be lots of healthy alternatives for role models, what young men can do. And nobody's doing that hardly. And, instead of complaining is what betas do. Alphas go and solve problems.
I think only the manosphere is. I've been thinking about lately, and I think you'll get this, the rise of the manosphere, and it's significantly escalating prominence in mainstream culture. You had in the 2010s, you had the Red Pill documentary. It was kind of a thing. In 2020, we had Make Women Great Again that I started and you were part of. That hit huge, 150 million people, New York Times, all that. Then we had Kevin Samuels blow up in 2021. That was huge, 1 million+ subscribers all over the news. Then he died, unfortunately. Then you have Andrew Tate, the rise of Andrew Tate, one of the single biggest events in internet history. That was just like recently, a few weeks ago. And that guy, Tate, he's criticized the manosphere, rightly so. He gets along with me just fine, a lot of our speakers, but the manosphere has a lot of fakes and frauds. But ultimately, I think he is a manosphere, like 100%, in terms of his ideas and his relationship spanning many years at this point. It's a significant part of his life and kind of where he came from on the internet. And now he's like the biggest dude in the world in terms of popularity and search and trending kind of stuff like that, right? So it's like every year that goes by, the manosphere escalates more and more and more into mainstream culture. I think because the need for it is so dire. There's nothing else. There's no church. There's no this organization. There's no government. There's no school. All the universities, almost all the churches, everything, every institution you have, every corporation, right? All Fortune 500 companies are woke as fuck. Everything is like fucking toxic garbage left and right, A to Z, up and down, inside and out. Except the manosphere is the one thing pushing back against that wholesale, as I see it. Everything. The manosphere, organically rejects the transformers, the feminism, the woke, all this garbage, all the lefty crap, even all the fake rhinos and crap. I mean, it's a huge pushback against all of it. It's a push for authentic masculinity. And that also is why I think getting the frauds out, like we talked about earlier, is so important. As it gets closer and closer to mainstream, we have to get them out. It's a problem that I'm trying to solve as hard as I can, as fast as I can. It's difficult. And people don't get that. They think it's just like some game, and it is a game, but it's also very serious. And it's hard. It's difficult to play this game and to win and to fight.
Well, and if someone wants to help you move this forward, dump some money your way. This is expensive stuff. It takes time. It takes energy. You've done a lot of research, background on things. You don't put stuff out unless you're absolutely damn sure it's true. And that takes effort. It takes time. And I know there are mature men out there that don't want to get their face involved in things. But if you want to change society for the better, you're not going to get anywhere through politics. There's no point in supporting and donating to politics at the moment. This is where the power is. The power isn't in the government anymore. The government's a dying entity. The power is in the manosphere and other places like that where people are organizing. And I think we're still in the prototype stage.
Yes.
We're getting to the point where we're ready to go mainstream and have a big effect. And I think starting the Patriarch Convention a few years ago was extremely important in that, because we're promoting patriarchy is the rule of fathers. It's not just the rule of men. It's the rule of the men who have demonstrated success and demonstrated that they can manage their own families. And throughout history, the patriarchal societies have always dominated the mixed or matriarchal societies because we do a better job of running society. And promoting that again, I mean, that was the first positive mention of patriarchy in like 50 years, was you starting that convention.
Yeah.
And now I'm hearing positive mentions about patriarchy everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, it just occurred to me, there was a whole series of what led up to that event, but it was my decision ultimately to call it the Patriarch event. And when I did that, even in the manosphere, it was controversial. Like, oh, is that a good idea? I'm like, yeah, fathers should lead their families. Men should lead in society. At minimum, that's what this means. They should lead their families. They should lead their marriages. They should lead their relationships. Whatever. Lead their churches. Lead. And this is what patriarchy is. And yeah, we got to steal these words back from the left and the feminists and crap. That's why I use it too. It pisses them off. For free. Yeah. That's the best. You got to find like what's super effective and then free. Make women great again. Boom. I got it from Trump, obviously, who got it from Reagan and whoever else cited Clinton. But now we're going to make women great again. We're going to make men alpha again. We're going to bring back the patriarchy because they blew it up. And we got to rebuild it. And we're
going to rebuild it bigger, stronger, and better than it ever was before. And this time it'll be rebuilt in such a way it can't be torn down.
That's right. Boom. There you go. Nail in the coffin. Boom. I love it. Yeah, we need it.
Well, and the thing too is you never do things halfway. When you do something, you go like balls to the wall. And I think calling it the page, you're not going to win with the left by trying to meet them halfway.
Yeah.
We have to establish our goalposts and set our boundaries for what things are, and then force them to conform to us, not the other way around. And I talk about that in the book, that a big, one of the keys to resisting manipulation is to know what your boundaries are, to set them. And then you need to develop the power to enforce your boundaries. So if you have boundaries, but you have no power to enforce them, you might as well not have boundaries. You see this in the Southern United States. If they're not willing to enforce the boundary, what's the point of having a border?
Yeah.
And it's the same with any personal boundary that we have with other people. We can have a person in our life who sometimes manipulates, because like I said, if we got rid of every manipulator, we'd be alone. We may have a family member that we love dearly, but they're a bit manipulative. My family, who is manipulative, doesn't manipulate me, and my wife's family is manipulative, doesn't manipulate me. I hear when they're talking, they're thinking about what they're going to say. They're thinking, Noah's not going to put up with bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to deal with him straight. And this is what happens. People start dealing straight with you. Now, on the other hand, you have to be rational and reasonable in return. So you have to give something back in return for that. But you make sure that you just don't. You can manipulate other people. You can't manipulate me. I won't tolerate that. And you can't manipulate my wife, and you can't manipulate my kids, because that's our job as men, is to protect our wives and children.
Yes.
And that changes society, because people now have to develop their skills of persuasion. And here's the thing is that most people don't have much of value to offer. And this is why they have to manipulate, because they can't persuade. They can't say, okay, I'll do this for you and you do that for me, and we'll be even. They can't do that because they don't have anything to offer. And so they're trying to create a false debt through manipulation that you then have to pay and give to them. Yeah. And once you force them to do persuasion, they have to up their game. They have to become better people, so they have something to offer. So by resisting manipulation, you make other people better people. The knock-on effects are massive. The trust that is increased in society. If a man allows me to manipulate him, I can't trust him, because that means someone else could manipulate that man as well and turn him into my enemy. So I can't trust any man that I can manipulate. I can only trust men that are resistant to manipulation and will tell me off if I ever tried to do that to them. Yeah. This is much bigger than just our own personal needs and interests, and we owe it to ourselves, but it's also a duty to society to resist manipulation and set that example and create those knock-on effects out into society. And if 5-10% of people in the world and in the West read this book and become immune to manipulation, that's enough to have an effect over the other 90-95%, because most people, they follow the dominant narrative. And that 5 to 10% of people now, when you can't be manipulated, you suddenly become dominant. Yeah. Now you are the dominant narrative. And in this case, the dominant narrative is truth. And the truthful narrative is a lot easier to maintain than the lie.
Yeah. When you're faking reality, you're creating multiple realities in a way, at least figuratively speaking, and you have to manage them then. So when when you have, especially when a lie is like against involving multiple people, multiple conversations, this and that, you're creating like 3 or 4 different realities. Whereas if you were honest and truthful and blunt, you have one to manage, because there's only one reality. You live in existence. You live here. I love what you said too about feminism not meeting them halfway, like all these conservatives, all these fucking beta males. Yeah, like with Make Women Great Again, one of the main elements of it, in fact, probably the biggest one of all, is I want to abolish feminism. Zero feminism, fucking zero. Not a little bit, not halfway, not 20%, zero. And this scares people because they're like, wait, what? No, what? They just start, they freak out like a little talking head, a little like a little plastic thing, like a bobblehead. And no,
conservatives are deathly afraid of winning. That's the absolute worst thing that can happen to them.
They're afraid of winning, and they're afraid of women, and they're afraid of womankind and their wives and their mothers and their daughters and all this bullshit. One thing you mentioned earlier that I wanted to say, that anytime, since I really woke the fuck up, got red pilled, became ultra uber giga chat alpha male, anytime I hear a girl say that her father is or was her best friend, beta dad, and the girl is probably a skank or she's fucked up. This is the truth. 99 times out of 100. Your father cannot be your friend. Pat Campbell, may he rest in peace, one of our speakers, he said this a couple times at our convention on stage. And I love that. He had like 5 kids, Catholic guy, right? Bang, be fruitful, multiply. Anyway, he would say, like, I'm not my kid's friend. I'm your father. And, with his wife and your husband, but, I'm your father to kids. He's like, I'm not your friend. And he said it very sternly, but very kind of warmly too. He was a very intense guy, no matter what. I mean, look at the guy; he was a beast. But yeah, I loved hearing that. It came to mind. Another thing you mentioned. So something I'll just let the audience know too, just kind of anonymously. But I had to deal with a speaker just recently, a couple days ago, potential speaker for the event. Never spoke at our event. Big YouTuber, right? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of subscribers. One of the biggest speakers we'd ever have. And he tried to manipulate me, and I told him basically to eat shit and suck my balls, and you're done. You'd be lucky if you don't get memed to death. So like, I'm gonna shove him down his throat and you can shit him out his ass, basically, is what I told him. So literally. So that was just one more recent example where I had someone tried to manipulate me, an instant, all right, you're done. The minute someone tries to fucking manipulate me in some underhanded, covert way, especially when it involves business, speaking engagements, any kind of major deal like that, you're fucking dead to me. Because I know that this person, that you're going to try that shit with me, you're going to try it again. You're going to try it to my friends. You're going to fuck up my business. You're going to fuck up the manosphere. And now I know who you really are behind the mask, behind the bullshit, right? The authenticity and mission and purpose and all this bullshit. It's all fucking fake. But in a way, I'm thankful because it also exposed, what was behind that mask, right? That I was still curious about. I didn't know. I was willing to have him speak. I was like, hey, maybe this guy is legit. Maybe this guy is good. Meeting him will help me understand that, right? Face to face, shaking hands, eye contact. But no, you try to fuck with me like that, you're dead. Done. Permanent. No fucking going back. Then, of course, didn't even apologize. Double down. Like, ultra scammer. You're going to burn.
Well, here's the thing. At this point, they should know who they're dealing with. Like, it's not like you're completely unknown. And that's not, a lot of people are very successful at manipulating, and they're not even very good at it. It's just that people are so susceptible to manipulation, and people are such suckers that they get pulled into this. And do you remember those anti-bullying campaigns where they take the bullies aside and they'd say to them, you shouldn't do this to kids, and you shouldn't do that to them, and then you shouldn't like waterboard them and these other things. And the bullies are sitting there taking notes and go, man, I never thought about that. Oh, that's a great idea. I'll do that too. Because most bullies, like, they did intimidate you. Maybe they'd slap you around a bit. They didn't have a lot of imagination for it.
Yeah.
Well, this is why I didn't write a book to say you should stop manipulating. Yeah, I do say that in the book. Don't manipulate if you are, because you'll just get it back. But I wrote a book so that the people who are getting manipulated can defend themselves. And that works the same with bullying. If you teach the kids that are getting bullied to hit back, or do what I did when I was a kid and organize the other kids to overwhelm the bullies, even if they're bigger and older than us, beat them till they had to go to the hospital, then you don't have a bullying problem. You can't solve the manipulation problem by telling the manipulators not to manipulate.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. You got to be immune to it. Then you got to teach your kids and your wife to be immune to it. And it just spreads out from there.
With the manipulators, I think what happens, and let me know what you think about this little mini theory, they develop a sort of arrogance organically from successful manipulation, even of like just dumb, naive fucking sheep. They just build this kind of false bravado for it in their own heads. Right? They might not even talk about it publicly, but they really believe their own bullshit. They believe their own capacity to manipulate. So then when they run into me or someone like me, like you or my other friends or other speakers and stuff, they just get fucking clobbered. They don't know what to do. But then also it's like, did you not see me in public? Like, you didn't just meet me. Were you not paying attention for the past several years of actually fighting with these people and actually succeeding and destroying some of these frauds and causing catastrophic, basically exposing them with the truth and then catastrophic consequences for them, often financially. And these things are sometimes you can track. You can track, the Patreon dipping 50, 60% in a year. You used to have 1,000 people. Now you have 400. Oh, that's too bad. Loser. All kinds of shit like that. Because I hate these people. All frauds deserve to be exposed and deserve to be destroyed in some capacity, right? Maybe not killed or anything. But no, if you're going to lie to people, then you deserve what's coming. You reap what you sow. You lie to people. You manipulate. You steal to people. They're stealing from people through manipulation. It's not force. It's fraud. And in objectivist philosophy, that's really the two sides of the same coin. It's just force applied directly, physically, or indirectly through lies and manipulation and fraud. Both are wrong, both are evil. But one, of course, is more difficult to detect due to its nature of being indirect and, a lot less transparent, a lot less easy to see. It's easy to, when a bully is manipulating somebody with his fists, like a kid, it's easy to see, it's easy to spot, and hopefully you can put a stop to it. But when you're being lied to, it's a lot more cognitive, it's a lot more mental, psychological, and philosophical too.
Yeah, a bully punches a kid in the face, he feels it in that moment.
Yeah.
A manipulator gets you real good, that might bother you the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think manipulation is worse than getting punched in the face. Getting punched in the face might do you some good. Might change the way that you behave, and so you go off and learn how to fight, and you grow up because of it, facing bullies. But if you're manipulated, very often it undermines you. It neuters men. It encourages women to behave in ways which are completely destructive to them. And even when the manipulator is long gone and dead, people still hear that voice in the back of the head of that person that was manipulating them, and they're still making bad decisions because of it.
Yeah.
It's truly evil in some cases.
It's echoes of manipulation. It's echoes of trauma coming, hitting you in the head. Yeah. So I want to talk more about the books more explicitly, though. Some of the table of contents I'm looking at here. So you begin the opening of the book with, "Are you being manipulated?" So my question is, how do you know you're being manipulated? What are some of the, can you give us some of the teasers from the book? Like, what are some of the basic, 3 ways someone can detect that they're being manipulated by a fraud or a predator or a con artist or some nasty BPD Jezebel woman?
So there's a bunch of techniques that manipulators use. Shaming, guilting, we call it GSRRM. There's about a dozen of them. And these techniques, they're designed to get you out of your rational mind and into your emotional social mind. So you're complying for social reasons rather than because it's the right thing to do. And anytime someone is trying to limit your rational thinking, they're almost certainly manipulating you. And they'll limit it by stimulating your emotions. So, think of the children. You get rid of guns because you got to think of the children. What about the poor kids? That's very clearly manipulation, because they don't want you to make a rational decision. They want you to have an emotional feeling about children and protecting children.
Well, it could be some hot chick trying to manipulate you as well, just blowing you, literally.
Yeah.
I mean, sexual stimulation and that kind of pleasure is a very, they call it the pleasure prison. It's how women manipulate men.
Highly manipulate. A great example is strippers. Strippers are master manipulators of men. Mm-hmm. So I know some ex-strippers. It doesn't mean they're all bad people because they're master manipulators of men, but that was their job. Their job was to get money out of men. And so they understand how to manipulate a man's loneliness, to manipulate a man's hunger and desire for a woman. And they'll get a ton of money from a man without even touching him. That's gone on to OnlyFans now mostly. So they'll get money out of guys without touching them. They know the things to say. They know the things to do to trigger that man's emotions so that it overwhelms his common sense. And anyone looking at it from the outside goes, "What a moron." Like, he probably thinks, if he sees another guy doing it, he probably thinks the guy's a moron too. But when he does it, it's triggering him so much in the emotional sense that his logic shuts down. And the more trauma you've had in your life, the easier it is to shut your reason and logic down. That's what trauma does. It floods you with cortisol so that your reason shuts down. And so that's the first way. The other way is when you see someone trying to manufacture a debt that you don't owe them.
Yeah.
This is particularly useful against men. So men are highly reciprocal. We have this built-in honor code that if Bro does me a favor, I do him a favor back. Like, guy buys me dinner because we all go out together. Guy buys dinner, and tomorrow I buy them dinner. Or you buy a beer, I buy you a beer back. We have this reciprocity, and they will use manipulation to manufacture a false debt. So here's a great one: white guilt is a false debt manufactured to convince white people that they need to keep donating, keep giving money, and keep giving up their political power, whatever it is, because somehow some original sin of being born with white skin makes you guilty. So that's one example of it. And these debts, they can never be paid. There is no way you can square that debt. That's the other way. Look for that manufactured debt. As a man, if you owe somebody something, you don't need to be told. If you need to be told, you're not a man yet. You owe somebody something. One of my favorite things to do is to lend a new friend a small amount of money, like $100 or something, and then never say anything about it again.
Yep.
And if he doesn't pay me back, I don't keep hanging around with him, because he's not a man yet. If he's not interested in paying back his debts, and I shouldn't have to say anything about it. So men know when they have a real debt. You got to get out of your emotional self, go back to your logic, and think: do I have a real debt here? Do I actually owe this person anything? Who are they to me? And so we can start to realize this isn't a real debt that we owe. This is a manufactured debt. And the last way that we can see that, the third important way, is that it is the end result is non-reciprocal. So they want to compel us to do something that's a win-lose situation: win for them, lose for us. And any kind of relationship that is consistently win-lose is a toxic relationship and needs to be ended.
Yes.
And so that's the things we have to look for.
A woman.
Yeah. Yeah, and people will, there are people who are bad at that accounting, and they don't recognize that they're in these win-lose situations. I know guys in win-lose marriages, and they're just losing, and their wife doesn't. Neither of them are willing to recognize it. So it's not always easy, that one, for men to recognize. Get some outside help. Get some outside perspective. We should have men we can trust that go and make judgments. They're going to tell us, no, you're being stupid. That's wrong. That guy's manipulating you. We not only have to protect ourselves, it's really important. I mentioned in the book that part of the defense against manipulation is to be ensconced in groups where you have people to have your back.
Yeah.
Because there are times when you don't see the attack coming, but someone else will see it. Someone else has got your back. Recently, there were some lies told about me, and I didn't notice them. Someone else found them and sent them to me and said, do you know this is going on? And so I was able to kind of expose it. And the more you expose it, the funnier it is to people and the less they're likely to believe the lies. Yeah. And so I was able to get that out there. I never saw it coming. I didn't see it on my own, but a friend had my back and he let me know it's coming. We need that. I think that for young guys right now, if you're not in a male group, if you're not in a group that, like in a life and death situation, they'd have your back, you need to create that. And if you have no idea how to create it, come to 21 Convention. Get into that group there. Feel the camaraderie amongst the speakers, amongst the people that attend every year. And you're going to start to understand why it's so important to be in a men's group, to be in a group of men, in a fraternity. And, you don't have to have one near you. You can make one. Talk to guys when you're there. Ask men about that. How do I make more male friends? How do I create a group in my area? If you come up to me, I'll talk to you about that. I'll explain how to do it. That's incredibly important to having yourself protected against manipulation.
Just to make sure too that guys know, so you're not speaking at the 21 Convention technically, you're speaking at 21 Summit. You're speaking at 2 of the 3 events. So the good news is, though, these are the speakers of the 21 Convention, blah, blah, blah. Great. I mean, to put it nicely or lightly. But they can also, when they attend 21 Convention, they get a free ticket to the Patriarch Convention, which is where you'll be speaking at. Let me put that link up here real quick. So the Patriarch Convention goes on at the same time, same weekend, and you basically get dual access, complimentary access to both events, and they can pick and choose to see which event they want to go to, which speaker they want to go to. So they can go to 80% of speeches at 21 Convention with that ticket, but they can go see you and maybe Michael Foster or Elliot if they want, depending on how they want to do it. It's kind of like your choose your own adventure kind of deal. I make it like a theme park, basically, the events. So there's Elliot with his lightning eyes. And then if we go down to here, that's where we have the speakers. Noah's there. Brian Save, Socrates, Jeff Younger, Coach Greg, Thanos, Foster, Elliot, Noah, Pat. A lot of amazing men. These are a lot of men I respect, man. All you guys. I haven't met everyone yet. I'm looking forward to the call. Yeah, it's awesome, man. And then if you're a chick, you can go to 22 Convention as well. If you're a female, a birthing person. So what are some... Yeah. What are some of the other defenses men can develop against manipulation? You mentioned developing a strong group that would have your back, life and death, whatever. That's good. That's been true throughout all of history, I would think too, by the way. So let's put that in a context. That's not just true now, that's true always. And I think it always will be, so long as we're physical human beings. We're not robots or something, right? The singularity is coming. What are some of the other defense mechanisms men can develop?
You also have to know who you are. Most men don't know who they are. Ask a man, who are you? I'll say it's a married man. He goes, I'm a husband and I'm a father. Okay, that's who you are to your family. But who are you? Well, I'm a man. I'm like, well, yeah, I can tell that. You didn't really need to say. But who are you? And that's a tough question for a lot of men to ask. Part of the reason is it requires some introspection that might be painful, because it might include some things you don't like and things you want to work on. If you don't know who you are, then you're just sitting there waiting for some manipulator to come along and tell you who you are. And as soon as they can control your identity, then they can control what you do. And so you need to know who you are, because who you are defines what you're then going to do in the world. You need to know what you actually believe in versus what you think you believe in. And so, I will see a lot of people claiming to believe in certain things, and then you see them in private and their private life doesn't meet up with that, and they're completely unaware of that dissonance there. They're
Yeah.
unaware of it. You know, men, I'm loyal to my wife. You're loyal to your wife because no other woman wants you. You
Well, you're
know?
loyal to your wife because you're a slave, not because you choose to be loyal. There's
Yeah.
no, it's not some
Well,
code you have.
yeah, she's got your balls in her purse. You know, is that loyalty or does she own you and you're her slave?
Yeah.
So we need
I
to know who we
actually,
are.
I actually want to pull up a live example right now. I think of what you're talking about, and this is this guy I love picking on because he's such a beta. I wish the best for him in a way. Like if he stopped being a fraud and stopped being a fake, fraudulent loser. But anyway, this guy. So if we look old school years ago, this guy Conovan Sharp, he ran his own channel, his own kind of little brand before anyone really knew he was a fraud, and it was about him and the red pill and blah blah blah. But he's slowly been consumed by this Jezebel, Devon Sharp, a single mom pushing 50. And she's basically, as one speaker put it to me that we know both, I'm not going to say his name, but he said she basically invaded his channel. And really, when he said that word invaded, I'm like, man, that hits the nail on the head. She invaded his mind and his identity. She told him now who he's going to be. So it used to be Conovan Sharp. Now it's Donovan and Devon. And how it's actually called How To Relationship has been the whole rebranding. So we went from red pill, you know, a fake alpha male, to just completely cucked and co-owned. He's basically been invaded and enslaved by this 47-year-old, you know, single mom. And it's just embarrassing to watch for a manosphere content creator. But a lot of what you're saying really reminds me of this because this is it's such a visible or vivid example of, you know, someone who didn't have an identity, who faked having a strong one, and then was invaded and had his hindbrain kind of cucked and controlled. A lot like, you know, John Samez. Like that's another guy who got, and if you actually look at his channel over time, it got invaded by a chick. It's not as explicit as with Conovan here, but with him, I mean, it's all about her basically. It's actually become all about him. Then it kind of split in half, and now it's like 80% her, 20% him. As she continues to dominate the relationship, he even jokes about her blue balling him and all this kind of stuff. It's very sick, perverse kind of relationship.
I remember it seems like 2 years ago where the only picture I saw of her on there was her ass. He had one shot of her ass in the video, and that was it. And him claiming, you know, he had complete control of the relationship, and you know, he would only have sex with her when she was at a weight he liked, and all that. And now this.
Yeah, she completely dominated him. It's pathetic. Yeah. Oh God, look at it. Look at this nasty one. Ugh. But yeah, it's a total domination, and it's just totally fucking stupid. Yeah, a picture of her ass. Yeah, I remember I posted a picture of that documentary.
Yeah,
Sick.
you're easy to dominate if you don't know who you are, because
Yeah.
you're just a shell and you're waiting for someone to give you an identity. And we see this, like we'll joke about this with people on the left where their identity is the current thing.
Yes.
But you're not immune to that happening to you just because you're not on the left. That happens to
Yeah.
a lot of people on the right too. And a lot of guys on the right, their identity is constructed one evening. Like they'll surf several channels on YouTube and construct an identity and go, this is now me.
Yeah.
It's not real. It's not who you are. You haven't been living that life.
Yep.
And what you have to do is see, what life am I living? And you have to look inside and say, okay, that's who I am. That's what I am now. Do I not? If I don't like it, at least be honest where you are. And if I don't like it, this is what I'm going to do to fix it.
Yeah.
Manipulate you, because that means someone has to come and tell you to be someone that is incongruent with who you are. And as soon as they do that, you know that they're manipulating you.
Yeah. Yeah, you bring up a good point that a lot of people on the right, they tend to have their identities filled in by other people. They're like this hollow kind of shell. And they think because like, oh, the left are hypocrites and blah, blah, blah. It's like, man, you are too a lot of the time. You don't realize it. And it's painful to watch. Like it's embarrassing to watch sometimes when I see the right, you know, just kind of like they become a bunch of zombies too sometimes, right? It's not just the left, it's them too. You think this way on this issue and, you know, this thing. And the student loan thing was a good example of that. To me, it's complex and nuanced because it's so retarded, and the government has fucked it up so bad for so long, dating back to at least 1972, when they decided to give banks special privileges to make student loans non-dischargeable in bankruptcy. They gave it a special benefit that it was not deserving. This then fucked up the cost of college and tuition, and Republicans did jack shit about this forever, had no intention of ever fixing it. They don't give a fuck. So it's like, you're bitching about all the student loan stuff and this forgiveness. I get it, but you're not even taking responsibility for helping cause this problem, and definitely doing nothing about it. A year ago, none of them would have cared at all about any of this stuff in terms of updating bankruptcy code to normalize bankruptcy laws for student loans. The same way a credit card or a car payment or whatever, a car loan can be discharged in bankruptcy. Why do student loans get special? Because of this ridiculous bullshit where, college is like, it's basically, I think, it's like a child of feminism and woke. Education is special. We're going to give special privileges to student loans so more kids can get student loans and then be enslaved to this lifelong debt that you literally can't get rid of unless you get your leg blown off in Iraq. Like, that's the only time that you get rid of it, is extreme hardship. Like you had a leg blown off in war. So yeah, it was so hypocritical.
I've had so many married 30-something-year-old women tell me, I will never pay off my student loans in time to have children, and like have a complete emotional breakdown in front of me, because they're like, I want to have kids, but I still got like 75,000 left in student loans, and I'll never pay that before my fertility window runs out, and I can't have kids and afford to pay the loan, the monthly payments. It is serious stuff. It's changing society. It's not just about money.
This is why women who go to college are basically all losers, as I see it. If she went to college, I wouldn't date her. Like, if my girl had a college degree, I would have never dated her. I want uneducated, pure blood, homeschooled woman. That's what I got.
Yeah. My wife was at first, when I first married her, she had like a bit of an inferiority complex over the school. I didn't go to college, and I kind of wish that I could have. And, right now, everyone she works with has way more education than her, but she's the most indispensable person. Her and a bunch of other ladies, they're they're friends of hers, are working together to educate their kids, and they're doing it through a private school. So basically, my wife takes my kids to school, and she teaches them part of the day, and her friends teach them the rest of the day. And this way, it's kind of like the old system where women of the village would get together and educate the kids in a group, except she gets paid, which is great. So then she has some extra cash.
They still kind of do that in homeschool, at least in Florida. There's something called like co-op, where a bunch of kids from a surrounding area that are homeschooled will go to someone's house for homeschooling that day. And it's like 5 or 10 kids or something like that. I didn't even know that it existed until recently. My girlfriend was homeschooled from 5th to 12th grade, which is like really unusual to find that. Yeah. Otherwise I would have fired her, get along.
Well, this is part of the reason why she's, you can tell she's got that energy to her, that homeschool kid energy. She hasn't been crushed by the system.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's we were never mind. I was trying to remember what I was going to say, but I forgot.
It's all right. So talk to me. I want to round out I'm going to look a little bit deeper into the table of contents here. You actually end one of the last chapters is a world without manipulation. Talk to me about that. Is that like a brighter future where we get rid of this fake fraudulent bullshit in the world?
When we become sufficiently immune to manipulation, what happens is we get a world where people have to self-improve to have something to offer. They have to, in the free market of life, you have to offer something in order to get value, because you don't have manipulation anymore as an option. That creates a high trust society where we can very quickly identify the odd person who will not conform to the no manipulation rules. A lot of people talk about having laws against manipulation. That we are probably never going to enforce those, but societal pressure against it is going to be much more effective. Now imagine societies where parents don't hit the kids, they don't manipulate them, but instead they teach them how to behave and how to solve their own problems and how to live and how to think. Imagine a world where people have to admit when they have limitations and go and deal with those limitations instead of pretending they're not real. Imagine a world where we don't live in delusion anymore, but we live in reality.
Yes.
And we're deeply connected with the real life, with real world. This is a world we've never experienced before. We have had higher trust societies in the past. We're actually at a low ebb for this today.
Yeah.
But just the way that we have suppressed violence in society used to be much more violent even 100 years ago. Even when I was a kid, society was way more violent than it is now. As far as people, we see a lot on the news, but generally most people are not subjected to daily violence. 200 years ago, daily violence was a normal occurrence for everyone. We are actually making some headway on encouraging parents not to beat their children.
Yeah.
The next frontier of improving humanity is reducing the amount of manipulation in the world.
Yes.
And just like reducing the amount of violence in the world improve their quality of life, so will reducing the amount of manipulation. It'll be a world where we can trust each other again, where we can start to believe what people say, and where we can have that kind of mutual cooperation and growth. And we don't keep getting ripped off. We don't keep wasting energy on frauds, and where it's almost impossible for our governments to trick us because we know a lie from the truth. That's the future that I want. And that's why I wrote the book.
Fuck yeah. I'm all about it, man. I mean, that is super consistent with what I believe. It's super consistent with Ayn Rand's objectivism, living in reality, and the elimination of force and fraud from society. Both need to be eliminated, not just one or the other. Both are bad. They're both the negation of man's mind, Ayn would say. And they are. You know, whether it's direct or indirect, it doesn't really matter. They're both toxic and evil. Yeah, I love it. I'm looking forward to reading it, man. We'll get around to it before the event. Maybe you could sign my copy when we meet in person.
I will. Maybe depending on how many people come, I'll bring a copy for everybody.
Yeah, that'd be badass. Also, too, people should visit your website, which I think is it's in the description to your Twitter and your book. But your website, which one are you using now? SMV4K or is it
NoahRevoy.com, but SMV4K is still up. I have to. I'm great at the coaching. I'm not so good at the marketing. I got to get somebody to condense all of my stuff and make it work better. So
I know a guy. I had this exact same problem, and I had too many websites, as you may have known over the years. We had 22convention.com, the 21convention.com, the 21convention.org. We had 21studios.com. You know, blah 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 down the line. It was this nightmare of crap. And locally, I actually found through a mutual friend, the friend of our safety coordinator, for our events. One of his friends actually helped me compress and condense and simplify everything into one website. Basically, we said one now, 21studios.com. I will refer you to him. He is awesome. You should definitely talk to him, in my opinion.
Definitely, I will.
Yeah, and so you offer, just to make sure everyone knows, you also offer phone coaching and Zoom coaching and stuff, one-on-one?
Yeah, I do a lot of coaching with people one-on-one. About a third of my clients are women, about 2/3 are men. And I'm coaching more and more married couples and married men because it's gotten so expensive that single guys can't always afford it. But I'm in such high demand that I had to raise my prices. I'm about 3 times this year, 3 times what it was at the beginning of the year now, because demand has just increased. You mentioned earlier about this is the time of the manosphere. People are desperate for help and they're looking for help. And because I do a good job, I'm busy all the time. And in order to balance my time out, I had to increase my rates. But talk to me. The good thing is that it's very fast. Progress is quick when you have a good coach. And my goal is that you don't need me forever. The idea isn't to, I'm going to coach you for the next 6 years, like a therapist. You're going to talk about your mommy every day every week for 6 years. No, this is, you got something to solve. You come to me, we'll work on it. 12 weeks later, it's done. You never need to talk about it again. It's fixed. And that's how I work with people, and I work with people all over the world. So wherever you are, reach out to me and I'll tell you how we can work together.
Nice. I really look forward to seeing you and Pat Stedman meet. His coaching philosophy is almost identical to what you stated in his own articulation. And that to me is a sign of a good coach and a good man. Richard Grandin, I think, is very similar as well. So you might
I like both those guys.
Yeah, cool. Everyone, make sure you pick up a copy of, Become Immune to Manipulation on Amazon.com. And come out to 21. Meet myself, meet Noah. I'll throw the ticket thing up here real quick. So like I said, Noah will be speaking at the Patriarch Convention. He'll be returning now to our events. He'll also be speaking at the 22 Convention for the females, which is right here, myself and Coach Craig. Noah is listed on the speaker down here, along with many others. Pat Stedman, I just mentioned. A couple chicks speak at the 22 under male supervision, of course, under patriarchal rule. Anyway, come out to the events, get a freebie ticket. Well, basically, when you buy one ticket, you can bring a friend free, or a wife, or a son, or a daughter, whatever you want, as long as they're over 18. If they're under 18, they can actually attend to, but you got to be with them at all times in the conference space. Finally, a lot of you bug me about my hat. So if you want hats, there's a link in the description, and you can get all the hats you want, or you can visit the21store.com. Noah, you can have as many hats as you want for free when we meet up. It's been a couple years since I've seen you face to face. Be cool.
Yeah, I'm looking. See if I can get an extra day on one end to the other so we can hang out a bit.
Yeah. I think the Tuesday night, you should stay through Tuesday night and leave Wednesday. Make sure we sort that out.
I have
Tuesday night,
a
we're gonna have
ton of clients in Orlando, actually.
Yeah.
And in Orlando, and friends in there as well. And so I'll probably stay a little while, and maybe an extra week even, and see all my friends.
Fuck yeah, that'll be awesome. Yeah, we have a private speakers only meeting on Tuesday night, so definitely come out to that. I don't know if we did that. We didn't do that in Poland, but we do it in Orlando. Yeah. Everyone else, thanks for tuning in to the Red Man Group episode 174. Do visit Noah's Twitter, follow him there. That's growing. Visit his website, buy his book, all that fun stuff. I'll see everyone probably next Saturday on the Red Man Group, and maybe a special episode before then with another speaker. Noah, thanks for your time.